It's 4 p.m. on June 27th, and the hydrangeas are in full bloom, and this is the status of the garden. So first off, the hydrangeas they look absolutely beautiful. Um, they're bright pink colors, and in some places they're also very bright blue. The comfrey has picked up and come up really well. Soon I'll start cutting out some of the leaves and mulching the apple trees around it. Unfortunately, I was away for 3 weeks on a vacation, and a lot of the garden has been taken over by weeds and unnecessary flowers, and I couldn't harvest a lot of things in time. But that's okay. That's the way it goes. Whatever we don't harvest, it goes back into the garden anyway. So one example here is this coriander. So the cilantro has bolted, really has gone to seed, and this is okay. We will gather the seeds as well, use some of it to plant a new crop later this fall, and the rest of it we'll just have as coriander seeds, which is also a spice that's used in Indian cooking. The carrots have also come up really well. The lettuce looks absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to start harvesting this and eating it. The cauliflowers are also coming up, not as much as I would have hoped, and clearly something's been munching on the leaves and causing a lot of stress to this plant. But it is what it is. Whatever we get out of it, we get out of it. What's really interesting is this apple tree, even though this is the first year, has put out one fruit. This is good because I know that these two varieties actually do pollinate each other, and in future I will get fruits. But I'll mostly be pulling this particular fruit out because I want the tree to still focus on growing new shoots and developing roots, as opposed to putting its energy into growing some fruit that's probably not going to taste very good anyway. So in this garden bed, again, the cilantro has bolted, but somehow the carrots haven't come up as well. I'm still not sure what the reason is between the remarkable difference in performance of that versus these two. The only thing I can think of is that garden bed is very, very shallow, and since it's very shallow, it's probably able to access the earth under the soil that I've added, and probably the soil that I've added is lacking nutrients and organic matter, which is why these plants are not thriving. It could also be that the soil I added had too much peat moss, which makes it too acidic. That could also be a thing. I will do a pH test to figure out what the issue is. Yeah, so I did pull out some of the plants that were not growing so well here, the radishes especially, and I've put in like a couple of watermelon plants here. I have to wait and see how it goes. And I've also put some peppers in that corner and some brassicas in the middle. The potatoes are pretty much ready to be harvested, I think. So I will be coming back later today with a rake and trying to pull up, see what we can find. That should be exciting. I'll try to record that and put that as another video. So the wildflowers are in bloom and they look absolutely beautiful. I do identify some nasturtiums here, but all the other flowers, I don't know what they are, but I'm very happy to see a lot of insects floating around, bees and other pollinators. So that's always exciting to see. The tomatoes have absolutely exploded here, but before we get to that, the peppers have come up really well. There are some weeds growing here and there. I have to pull them out, but I do see some insect damage on these peppers, but that's okay. I also see them putting out fruit, which is quite exciting. The okra, for whatever reason, hasn't come up as well this year as they did last year, but it could be a number of reasons, and we've also had very erratic weather over spring. So I'm going to start another new batch of seeds and see if that goes better. The eggplant leaves also see a lot of insect damage. Not exactly sure which insect is causing this. If someone knows, please let me know. But it is putting out flowers, and I'm excited to see if I can get any eggplants this year out of it. Right, the bell peppers are also looking really good. They have put out a lot of buds and a lot of flowers, but no bell peppers actually yet. One of the experiments I did with bell peppers this year was to do a comparison between pruning and not pruning bell peppers, and generally any pepper. I'll tried to post a comparison, side-by-side comparison of two different plants here, one of which was pruned, one of which wasn't at some point. But the gist of it is, if you're pruned, they branch out more from the bottom and the plant doesn't get so top heavy, and people say it leads to better yields. I guess we can wait and find out. So yeah, on the grape trellis, on the southern side of the grape trellis, the tomatoes have completely exploded. I planted like 7 or 8 different varieties of tomatoes. These were starts that I got from Home Depot or Lowe's, and they've completely exploded. I see a lot of tomatoes on them. I was kind of keeping on top of pruning them before I left on vacation, but I see a lot of branches now, so I will come through and prune away all the suckers out of these tomatoes, since these are all indeterminate tomatoes and pretty much will be producing tomatoes till they die out at the end of the season. I'm also really excited that the walking onions have exploded. This is basically a prime example of what a walking onion does. You see this long stalk, and at the end of it there is this onion bulb that starts forming, and once it becomes bigger, it gets heavier, and slowly it falls onto the ground and becomes a new plant. So they basically walk around that way, and that's why they're called walking onions. The bulbs are completely edible, just like any other onion. It's supposed to be very pungent, which I'm quite excited to taste. But most people use it for the greens, which is great as well. So this was my strawberry bed. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it has exploded with weeds. I was hoping the strawberry would come up and stay above some of these, but looks like I'm going to have to manually intervene and rescue some of these strawberries. But I do see some strawberry flowers out there, which is quite exciting to see. And I also planted like a lot of borage near it, and you can see quite a few happy bumblebees in the borage plants. Borage is a fantastic pollinator. It grows so well and the flowers look so pretty. Here's a little fella, happily going from flower to flower. Beautiful. The borage has completely exploded in this area, which I'm so happy to see. Some people say it's supposed to even like positively influence the taste of the strawberries, although I'm not so sure if that's fact or fiction. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I also planted some bush type determinate tomatoes here. It was way too much effort to get like a separate cage for each of them. In future I might go around and put up some makeshift cattle panel rings around them, but for now they're just growing freestanding. Hopefully they'll be fine. The peas unfortunately lived and died while I was away on vacation. I still have to come through and harvest. A lot of these pods are actually quite edible, and these were shelling peas anyway, so it's okay to let them go to seed. The only problem is peas, like most other plants, the more you pick early, the more you get in terms of output production. And since I wasn't here, the plant completely focused on all of its energy on maturing all the seeds it already put out, all the peas it already put out, and therefore the plant has completely died out in most cases. But that's okay. Since this is a pretty well shaded area and it keeps cool under the shade of this magnolia tree, I might end up putting another batch of peas here as well. Right. So coming further downhill, these two wildflower patches have absolutely exploded, and they're full of foliage and they're full of beautiful flowers. It's amazing to see. It brings in so many pollinators, and this is so invaluable to the garden. Whenever possible, I always think we should let as much of the land go to weeds as possible, because a lot of these weeds are really beneficial flowers that help in pollination. Right, the hazelnut tree is looking good. It's still not growing as vigorously as I had hoped, and I do see some damage on the leaves from some insect, but I'm just going to wait and see if it picks back up. The same is the case with the raspberries as well. I know it's supposed to grow like a weed, but the first year has been quite slow so far. Hopefully he'll bounce back, and we'll have some raspberries in a year or two. I can't get enough of these bumblebees. They're so cute. Right. So the compost pile looks like it has completely broken down. This is something that I haven't been paying much attention to. I did make sure that the balance of nitrogen to carbon was quite low, in the sense that I added a lot more carbon to nitrogen, so I didn't have to keep turning it. So I would have to come back with a pitchfork later today to see how much of it is actually finished and if it's ready to be used in the garden. The tulips and the irises have come up and they look so beautiful in this evening sunlight. And the hydrangeas are everywhere as well. So the currants look nice. They did put out some flowers, but looks like we're not getting any fruit in the first year. But that's okay, that's expected. These are still very young plants. Hopefully this year they'll completely establish themselves here, and next year we'll have some fruit from this. So this place is quite shaded because of all the trees, but currants are supposed to thrive in the shade anyway, so hopefully that's not too much of an issue. The container garden has been a mixed bag. The tomatoes have come really well. All of these are 15 tomato plants of silvery fir tree variety, which is supposed to be somewhat of a rare variety to get, and it's also supposed to taste quite acidic, which is what I look for in a tomato, since most Indian cuisine relies on the tomato's acidity as opposed to the sweetness. And I see a lot of tomatoes in all these plants, so yeah, I just have to wait and see how they taste, and yeah, I'm quite excited about this. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the other plants that I put here haven't come up so well. These 5 had broad beans or avaraka. A couple of these have come up like this. This is not it. A couple of these plants, yeah, most of these plants are pretty much at the same height they were when I left, which is not very exciting to see, but it is what it is. Win some, lose some. I don't know what the reason is. I'm going to see if I can plant some of these in the ground somewhere in the garden to see perhaps if they'll have a better luck there, because one thing I've noticed is the tomatoes are doing really well, but most other plants aren't, which could mean again that the soil is somewhat acidic or lacking nutrition, because I know for a fact that I did add some tomato specific fertilizer to the tomato plants and I didn't for the other plants, so it could totally be a nutrition issue. The same is true for the container garden in the bottom row as well. A lot of the beans, for instance, have been bolting. I'm planning to plant another batch as soon as I pull out the lettuces in the raised garden bed, but for now they don't look so good. I do like the nasturtiums have come up. It's very pretty, but they definitely could be bushier as well. So yeah, there is definitely some issue with the soil that went into this. I try to keep it as close to Mel's mix as possible, using equal parts peat moss, compost, and vermiculite or perlite, whichever one I had at hand, but looks like there is some other issue. I'll try to do a soil test to see if the pH is off or something like that. Usually if there is too much peat moss added, the soil becomes quite acidic and very few things grow, so that is most likely the cause. The sunflowers seem to be doing quite well though. I'm quite excited to see the blooms come out soon. This is supposed to be a dwarf sunflower, which is supposed to be good for containers, so we'll wait and see how that comes up. So that's pretty much the status of the backyard at this time. The trees in the front have also been doing quite well. We have had some issues with the watering system in the front of the house, because of which their growth is still again not as prolific as it should be, but we just have to wait and see. They'll most likely bounce back, and yeah, that's pretty much it.